Because I did not. I listened to Mac Miller like when he first came out. My boy Andrew Souter, shout out Souter for putting me on
Mm-hmm.
Kool-Aids and frozen pizza. Listened to Mac Miller and then didn't really like pay attention to him. And then that tiny NPR Tiny Desk concert.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least once, maybe twice a year, I go back and listen to it and just goaded.
I just was playing because I love the game. Like, and it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Low six in his hands, whistle in his mouth.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it.
But on to more important things. The Kirklin household has grown to 5.
Grown to 5. We had a child, I guess a week and a half ago now. Yeah, a week and a half ago. Had our third child, a baby boy. Named him Cade Lee Kirklin. So obviously that's after Coach Lee. I think the name is like a symbolism of belonging and self-identity. And so when you're choosing a name, like what's the symbolism behind it when you tell your child? And sometimes it's as simple as it sounded cool when me and your mom were driving down the road one day, you know. That's honestly kind of where Cade came from. It's like, what would be a good sports name that would sound good at the batter's box, or, you know, just through a touchdown pass, Cade. And that's where that came from. And then the middle name was like, for me, what rolls with the first name. I think there's a lot of names out there that you hear, and it's like, I hope there's some symbolism behind that middle name because it doesn't roll off the tongue. And so we named it Lee. I think Coach Lee, I think the world of him, and he stands on integrity, loyalty, compassion, love, just doing the right things the right way. And so, you know, I think when Cade is old enough for me to explain why his middle name is Lee, I think it just gives that child eventually, you know, becoming a man, something to lean on and know that, hey, you represent this name. This is what he stood for. Don't do that in vain. And so, yeah, but he's a healthy boy. And when you watch a woman give birth, it's like, how can you not believe in God? It is the most remarkable thing ever to witness. And also is like, how soft are we as men to watch your wife go through that? And then a couple of days later, literally 4 days later, my wife is at our daughter's into school program.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
When Bo was born, our third, so he was born Monday morning, the week of Thanksgiving in 22. We had a game that Friday. And so Bo was 3.5 days old when Kelly came pushing a stroller into Eagle Stadium in Allen, Texas, when he attended his first football game. So
Wow.
They're way tougher than we are. But
They are.
I like, and it was funny because you had texted me and you were like, "Hey, could be any day now, not sure. Probably like could be tonight, probably going to be tomorrow." And then I didn't want to like, you know, it's a stressful time, and I know that like the last thing Lauren wants is to look over while she's in labor and you're like on your phone. And so I didn't text you that whole next day, and then I texted you at like the butt crack of dawn the day after and was like, "Hey, any update?" And you were like, "Yeah, 20 minutes ago." And you sent me the video of you cutting the cord, and I was like, "Oh my God, I didn't expect that quick of an update." But all right, sick.
Yeah, bro, you're my best friend.
Caught it at the perfect time.
It was a perfect time. I didn't know this on the maybe it's like a glitch in my phone, but like, you know, normally if you're playing like music on your phone and then you go to take a video, the music will stop and then it's just the video playing. Again, maybe it's a glitch. I don't know. So the nurse was like, "Hey, do you want me to video you, you know, cutting the umbilical cord?" And I had Tim McGraw playing like our wedding playlist playing during the birth. That's what we've done the last 2 marriages is play like a playlist to try to.
Last 2 births, not marriages.
Yeah.
Chill out.
Yeah. Yeah. Birth. Sorry. But our marriage playlist to play throughout that to try to give her some peace. Not that it probably helps at all. And at that moment, Tim McGraw was playing. And so long story short, she ends up videoing it. And then I get the video back and the music is still playing in the background of the video. Almost like I like cut in music.
I thought you made that.
Didn't make it. Nope.
I was like, oh wow, man, this Trent's getting really good on his phone. He like threw this together, put some music to it.
I don't know how to do that. it was just a continuation of the song. So I was like, it's perfect though. So Cade was born to, I think it's Tim McGraw. It was either My Best Friend or Your Love. I can't remember, but yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, you're talking about like about Cade's name and the value and thought that you put into it. So when we were trying to figure out how we like Parker's name just kind of came together. Parker Jane, like middle name, family name.
It's good.
Parker just, and it fits her to a T. And we were trying to figure out like what the name Bo, like full name. And Kelly comes back from a doctor's appointment and she's like, Dr. Burt said that, the name he's always liked is Callahan and like he's short for Cal. And we'd always loved like some variation of Bo. And so Kelly's like, what do you think of Bo Callahan? I was like, I mean, that's a great name. It's good, strong, like football name. And then at about the 6.5 month mark, we go to Florida for a wedding. And on the way there, I was like, I need you to understand something that like Bo Callahan, strong name. Bo Callahan's also a character from a football movie and he is a bust. She was like, Travis, we can't name our son after a bust. Like that's just setting him up for failure. We gotta go back to the drawing board. So when we got to Florida and like friends, family, everybody's there, Kelly just like polls all of my friends. It's like, all right, which version do you guys like better? And that's how we got to Callahan Bodine, and we just call him Bo because all my buddies with Troy Baker and like some other guys were like, they're like, Calbo sounds like he has a blonde mullet, plays shortstop at LSU, and he's either going to be a lawyer or an oil tycoon. And I was like, I mean, if we're picking a name based off of like potential success, I don't know how we aim much higher than that. So he doesn't know yet. He doesn't know that he was named on the beach at Seaside.
That's a good story though. Like that is so cool. I think it rolls too. So that's good.
Well, I don't know if you noticed the shirt down here in the corner. Today's report day for the old FCA All Star Game. About to roll up there and get to work. We had our little, I say little. They had to. So it's an FCA All Star weekend. So there's baseball All Star Game, softball, girls basketball, boys basketball. They have All Star cheerleaders, and then the football game, and they're all Texas versus Arkansas. And so all the coaches went last night. We had a dinner and kind of go over some of the guidelines, expectations, play some games. And going into today, the big thing for the game that we're really excited about is one of the guys talking who's done it for 4 or 5 years now was like, it's a coach's revival, right? It's the rediscover of your why. And, this is a game where you get to coach, knowing that the outcome, yes, obviously we want to win, but knowing that the outcome has no bearing on like who you are as a coach. And, the scoreboard's not going to reflect whether or not you get an extension in your contract or anything like that. And it's been a long time. I don't know if I could confidently say I've ever coached in a game like that. So I'm looking forward to just being in that atmosphere and the unique experience of like, I get to coach 3 kids that I coached at Rivercrest that are playing in the game. I get to coach them one more time. But getting to coach kids from like all over the area that otherwise I would never really interact with. And I don't know about like, because you're a couple years younger than me, I don't know about when you were still coming out of high school, but I still remember when the THSCA All Star Game was like a huge deal. Yeah. And they played it at TCU. And like the 2 teams they're the 2 staffs that they picked to coach it were like state champion staffs. Right. Like, so they would pick a school and that staff their whole staff would coach like the North or the South or the East or the West, however they divided it. And I know that there's early enrollees and there's this and there's that and all these reasons, but like, I hate the fact that something like All-Star games are like dying because I mean, I'll be honest that like it's a little bit different in our situation because we're playing like cross-border rivals. So it's like when you throw the Texas versus Arkansas thing in, I think it makes it a little bit more like gets the competitive juices going. But I know that other All-Star games, whatever the affiliation and group is that puts it on, they're struggling to get participation. Like you're having to ask 5 guys to get 3 to say yes. And I hate that because people are so worried about like, oh, well, I don't want this to like, it's just this, sky is falling mentality of like, what if something bad happens? Like, well, what if something bad happens driving to the gym, And I hate that because I think there's such unique experiences outside of just like for us, the FCA value in that aspect. But those All-Star games, getting the opportunity to go interact and be coached by other coaches before you go off to college or the real world or, your college coaching staff, whatever it may be. I think those are such valuable experiences that kids are missing out on because we've lost the big picture perspective on like, what's the purpose? What's the value? Why are these things? Why did they used to be such a big deal?
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. It's like, obviously everybody's in the point where they probably just ended school. And what I've noticed a trend in the last few years is like whenever I was in high school, and I hate saying that because like we're starting to sound old, but like whenever I was in high school, like the end of football season to me internally didn't resonate as the end of my high school career. Like I still was looking forward to the spring sports, track, not really, but you get the point. Like I was looking forward to like prom and hey, I still have a whole other semester with my friends. Like, yeah, college is like in the near future, but like I still have school left. What I've noticed that trend, especially in football players, is like you might beat a week 6 and you just found out you ain't making the playoffs. And to them, it's like you can almost put a stamp on that moment there. They just go straight downhill the rest of the fall and the rest of the spring as far as any hope, fun, anything. And it's like, no, my high school career is done. I'm just going to college now. So you have like those kids. And then you have the kids that are, like you said, the early enrollees that are like the moment after that last game, I'm basically already in college. Like I'm done. Which I think all of those things combined affect anything that happens post-fall in regards to football or whatever it may be. So it does suck.
Well, and it's like you get the guys that are now you get the reclassification guys, that they just forego their senior year. Or isn't there a kid that Ole Miss that he skipped like his last 2 years of high school?
Yeah.
And I understand it. Like those guys, and it's not a knock on those guys, but the problem is other people who aren't those guys see that and they're like, oh, well, clearly I need to make that decision. It's like, no, yes, he's 16 years old, but he's also 6'5", 225, He's physically matured to that of someone a decade older than him. He's got a 4.1 GPA. He's been taking dual credit classes since he was in 8th grade. Like this has been a long-term plan. This wasn't a just snap decision. And when people make those decisions and they don't understand the full spectrum of like everything that plays into that, you forego a lot of opportunities to do a lot of really cool things. And I remember going to the All-Star game my senior year. I didn't play in it by any means, but like Logan Turner, who's the head coach at Lone Oak, he was a quarterback in it. When I went with my best friend from home, and we hung out with Dan Buckner, the big Allen receiver that went to Texas and then transferred to Arizona. And like, Buckner wasn't playing in the game, but it was a who's who event because college coaches wanted you to come and they wanted to see you there and they wanted to be able to interact with you and see this stuff. And it's one of those things where you're like, nobody's doing that anymore. Right.
Yeah.
Like they're having to allow juniors to play in the Navy All-American game because they know that those guys are going to be early grads, but they're still high-profile recruits that they want in the game. So you got guys that are in high school, still have high school games left in their future that are playing in these games because of that. And again, that's a very logical plan for a 4 or 5 star kid that, is going to go to big time SEC, Big 10, Big 12 football. But you got understand the pecking order. And like, if you're not that guy, you don't need to be doing that. Like, you need to soak up every opportunity you can. Don't skip out on things just because you kind of have a misguided perception of what your last 6 months of childhood should really look like. And I hate that because I mean, make All-Star games great again, I guess is kind of my point.
No, I love that. It's good.
So another thing that I wanted to talk to you about is it's an interesting situation that unfortunately I feel like is kind of happening a little bit more every offseason. And I'm sure it's across the country, but here in Texas, it's a little bit different because I never thought we would be in this situation. But I believe, it's May 28th, right? We're almost into June. Like you just mentioned, school's basically over for most of the country. And I would ballpark a minimum of 15 head football jobs that are open right now. Probably more, probably closer to the mid 20s. And that's scary for a plethora of reasons. I think it's scary to think about the idea of being a head coach that takes over a job in June, right? Mm-hmm. You got less than 60 days to build a staff, hire who you need to hire, implement any sort of culture and program and expectation, and an offense and a defense. And that's really hard to do even if you start in March, right? Yeah. But my question, or kind of hypothetical that I would pose to you, is like, at what point do you think a program, like point in the year, does a program need to look and go, look, we got to bite the bullet. We need to name an interim, roll through the fall, and hit this thing at the beginning of the hiring cycle? Like, what point is that?
That's a good question. I think a general rule of thumb is May. I would say,
like if you haven't hired by May 1st,
you haven't hired by May 1st, there's a problem. Like, to me, it'd be smart to name an interim. Now, I'll say this. If you get down to the details of it, keep in mind, let's just talk Texas and Tennessee, right? That's who we are. Texas, for sure, May. Like, if you're a big-time program and you don't have a hire by May, name an interim, 100%. I think you can give grace maybe to some coaches in the state of Tennessee. Here's why. Remember, we start practice next Monday. So, yeah. And so we'll practice all of June and up until the last week. So we have the last week off of June, first week of July off, and then we're practicing all of July going into season. So that's technically 2 months of real football. You could say spring football, what Texas programs get, even though we also have spring football. But so I'm saying that to say there's 2 months of grace there that you could say in reality is March in Tennessee. I don't know if that makes sense or not, the way I'm describing it. 2 months of grace, because you have 2 months to actually do football. Whereas in Texas, you get hired in May, you're doing performance course or whatever it may be for 2 months. And then, oh, hey guys, I know I've been around, but I'm the head coach. Whereas here in Tennessee, they've at least heard you give your post-practice talk every single day. So I think there's a little bit of a difference. But I would say even that, because a school just did that here in Tennessee, a public school that's really well known, and they promoted within. And I don't know the guy, and who am I to say what's right and what's wrong? Yeah, I'm not sure that was the right decision, because unless you feel good about your process, like, you're not committed to that guy for at least 3 years. Whereas if you could have very well said, hey, you're the interim, show us what you got for the next 8 months. That's what I think you should do, because regardless, like, you have 8 months to prove it anyways. Like, even if you say I'm the head coach for the next 3 years, like, those 8 months, that's what you're proving. You're just buying yourself, in my opinion, another year and a half or to 2 maybe. But yeah, I say May. What do you say?
I think that there's it's, situations are situational, right? It's not just about play calling. Like, if you're an Alito, if you're a Brock, if you're, a Paradise, you're one of these schools that you consistently good, not occasionally great, right? Then it could be the last week of school, and the guy has your head coach. He's been the head man for 20 years. He's been the AD for 20 years, whatever. He gets the opportunity to say, "Hey guys, this is it for me. I'm out the door. I'm calling it quits, hanging up the whistle, I'm retiring. But we all know that this program is going to stay the course and it's in great hands because Coach so-and-so, who's been here for a decade, as the OC,
Right.
the DC, he's taken over and we're promoting within. I think that that's perfectly logical. You could do that on the last day of school and
True.
and nothing changes, right? To me, the problem is when you see a program that's gone 2-8, 2-8, 3-7, 1-9. Hey, we're letting the head coach go, but we're promoting within. It's like, okay, so you don't want change.
That's a great
Like
point.
you're good with just riding it out. You're not gonna like play the field at all. You're not gonna date around and see who potentially out there could, I don't know, make this place better. But I think that if you don't have the opportunity to bring some, like you said, May, if you don't have the opportunity to go through your process, hire somebody, and then be on campus for a month and a half, I would even argue that, like, if you're starting from scratch, mid-April for a start date is really what I would consider to be kind of pushing it, because the ability to come in, that guy's got to evaluate not just the players. He's got to evaluate the coaches. He's got to evaluate the system. He's got to be able to have conversations about adjusting scheduling. Is he a morning practice guy? Is he an afternoon practice guy? Is there a reason? What's his plan for the junior high, right? He's going to have 4 school weeks. And if you're one of the schools in Texas, like we are, that's you're 4 days a week, you got 16 class days to figure that out. Like, that's tough. You're asking a lot. Not because, like, is there enough time? Probably. But is there enough familiarity to understand that, like, this is how they're doing it? Here's the good, here's the bad, here's what I would change, and here's why. That's not a snap decision. That's something that you've got to observe and evaluate the same process multiple times to poke holes in or support, vice versa. And I just think that if you're not doing that, if you're not giving your program the chance to have that guy on campus for 6 weeks before the school ends, it's going to be tough. Now, I will say this. There's a lot better coaches out there than me that have been able to come in first or second week of May. They don't need to do a lot of those things because they have their tried and true program. They have their tried and true schedule. They know exactly how they're going to do things, when they're going to do things. And administration knows that. They know exactly what they're hiring and they know what the expectation is. So that implementation process, you just jump right in it. You get to kind of skip that evaluation, right?
Sure.
And so I think anything after probably like Cinco de Mayo is you're getting a little stretched, right? Yeah. But to me, you look at it from like a Tennessee standpoint, you look at it from the perspective of like, okay, but we do get 2 months of practice, right?
Right.
If we were to do something new, or if we were to make a change at the end of May, at the beginning of June, right? If we were to force a different direction, quote unquote, in any type of major way, offense, defense, special teams, I look at it being even harder because you just told us that y'all also have spring ball. So these guys, they had, let's ballpark it, 6 weeks off, right? From the end of the season to like no football on the brain,
Right.
where they're just like recover, workout, etc., and then meetings start, and then we're getting ready for spring ball in some form or fashion. Okay, so a cycle ended, and now we've started that cycle again. They've gone all the way through the install. They've gone all the way through any adjustments and growth and position changes or anything of that. They've continued to familiarize themselves day in and day out with this vernacular, this expectation on one side of the ball. But hey, June 1st, guys, we're going to go in a different direction. So everything that we did in the spring, your teenage mind is going to go, well, that was a waste of time.
Sure. No, that's
right?
a good point too.
And now you've set yourself, 30 days or a spring football season behind your competition. So to me, y'all's schedule and the amount of time that you get to practice puts an even heavier weight on making an early decision versus a late decision. But also as a leader, why would you want to make a late decision?
Right.
What kind of trust and confidence are you building in the players? Because kids aren't stupid, in the players and the staff, of like, if this was a well thought out decision, if I had planned for a decision like this, why am I making it after school's over?
Correct. Yeah.
So
that's a good point. I mean,
that's just how I would weigh it, right?
No,
I also think you guys, nobody in the state of Tennessee is ever going to hire me, but I think you guys practice way too much, and so. But hey, that's neither here nor there. But if you're going to practice that much, you better be rowing all in the same direction every practice.
No, you're right. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a kid like what you just said. I think you're right. I mean, it would take a really good at that point. Now you're getting into the character of whoever's coming in and what's his ability to win over the team after just having spring ball, now jumping into June ball. What's his ability to win over the team immediately? I feel like that's what that would come down to be able to buy into his product over the product they just had. That would be tough too. So it's at that point, it's a matter of who is it? Well, I think that's always the case. I remember it didn't take but a couple conversations for me my senior year to go from the previous staff that I had to the new staff that I had my senior year to be like, where's this been my whole life? I mean, let's go. I'll run through a brick wall for this guy. Now, where I'll say things are different nowadays, and maybe, I don't know so much in Texas, especially like small ball Texas, but like the private schools here, think of it as IMG. So like, again, I've made these comments before, and there's a point where I'm going, so just hang with me. But whenever I was in high school, offensively, it was like I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't tell you what cover 6 was. I couldn't tell you what 38 double cloud is. So conceptually, it was like I didn't know if it was a waste of time or not. I just want to know if my head coach is a good dude or not. Now, my quarterback's with me every single day for 2.5 hours before the period begins. So like, he knows what 38 double cloud is. He knows what 3 boundary backer is, and he knows these concepts. So he knows. So he could have the mindset, like you said, if somebody was to leave in May, come in June, to be like, conceptually, this is a waste of time. Can't do it. He would have a grasp of that, I think, compared to like me. It was like, oh, this is a really good dude. And the one I had, the last 3 years sucked. So,
well, and that's the thing is like, because what do you tell that kid, right? Like, okay, how do we make up that time? All right, hey, me and you, I know you were meeting with, the old coach for, let's conservative, right? Hey, I know you were meeting with him an hour a day, 4 days a week. Okay, well, because of when I'm coming in, we're going to meet for 3 hours a day, 4 days a week. Yeah. And yes, IMG, private school, preparatory, all that. Like, I totally understand that mindset, that mentality. But at what point is a kid going to be like, seriously, when do this, like, I'm not getting paid. When do I get to, like, I don't know, be a kid? When do I get to, like, go to the lake or, go do those things? Because now what you're telling me is that you invested all this time before I got here. I don't really care about that. You better spend some time trying to meet that kid where he is and not make that kid start over. And it takes a special coach to do that, because especially guys that like, this is my process. This is how I go about it. This is why it's been successful, blah, blah, blah. All those things, you're telling that kid like, nope, reset, start over. Right. And and the other part of that is how many of y'all senior class signed a college scholarship?
We didn't have a lot this year. 5, I think.
5 of how many?
I want to say we didn't have like 15, maybe. Something like that.
So 30% of your senior class signed, not SEC, not Power 4, not Division 1, just play, or they're going to play college football somewhere, right? 33%. So you expect 100% of the team to give the amount of time, energy, and effort, knowing that only 33% of them, like, you just have to understand the classification, like we've talked about with the will skill. Like, you've got to understand that there's different groups and categories. And if you're going to practice that much, you better be as efficient as possible. And if you make a late change, or if you force a late, hire or anything like that, to me, even though you get more, all it does is make every minute that much more valuable. And it should have been made. Like, you moved to you got the Lipscomb win like January 5th.
Yeah, it was into January. Yeah.
And what'd y'all do the first year? Semis?
Yeah, semis.
And what'd they do the year before you got there?
The 3 years over 3 and 30.
So we're going to pretend like early decisions and early implementation weren't a big part of that. Obviously, it wasn't the only part, but like,
right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just an idiot.
You're right. No, it makes it.
I only deal with programs that have like, 100 kids in the whole high school program. But it just, I don't get it.
No,
I don't get it.
You're 100% right.